Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery with Smart Money Alliance and IIMFL. We're going to have our daily Zoom training and support call this morning. We have these most Mondays through Fridays at 8 o'clock Central. Today, we're going to talk about how to expedite your penetration in your community. In other words, helping more small businesses by working with key influencers. And we're going to actually go through the top 10 list, talk a little bit about each of them and some recommended strategies. This email actually went out, or this went out in an email to our board members Friday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday morning, but we didn't get to it yesterday, so we're going to go through it today. Keep in mind, Jennifer is here. She is motivated. She is excited. She is here to assist you in implementing these strategies. So you want to lean on Jennifer. We're seeing some of you adopt these practices and exploding in growth. Our numbers, we're going to be 100% growth, I believe, this month over last month. So the timing's really good. We just need to make sure that you're getting engaged in teaching. So we've talked about the importance of teaching the entrepreneurial program, how simple it is. You've got the PowerPoints, you've got the speaker's notes, you've got the handouts. You're going to make on average $4,000 to $5,000 up front for teaching that one class. Now the one class is over 4 weeks, in person or online, and you make a whole lot more than that on the back end. So we've covered all of that. You don't need to hear more about how you can help a lot of people and make a lot of money. Let's talk about key influencers today. So you should see here on your screen the top 10 organizations that we would like you to reach out to immediately. Let's talk about each of them and what you may want to know about them. And Peggy, I see you have your hand up. If you want to go ahead and type in the question into the Q&A, kind of like a chat box on Zoom, we can address that. Okay, and these are in no particular order, by the way. So these aren't meant to be the top 10 like David Letterman used to be, with the number 1 being the most important. These are just the 10. We can even change them to bullets if you would like. How's that? Okay, so number 1, SCORE. If you're not familiar with SCORE, you can go to score.org, which is listed here. SCORE.org is supported by the SBA, although it's largely a volunteer organization. I used to be a SCORE volunteer. You may want to become a SCORE volunteer. It's a lot of fun. I was the workshop chair for a 14-county area. And then in addition to that, I went to a library. I forget now if it was once or twice a week. And then the central office would schedule clients to come meet with me, and I would counsel. So you can certainly go become a SCORE mentor if you want, but that's not what we're talking about. But what I'm suggesting that you do is that you take the press release and the flyer regarding the entrepreneurship program and share it with the education chair or even the president of your local SCORE chapter. Introduce what we're doing, and then seek to collaborate. Each SCORE chapter is ran autonomously and differently, and they have different philosophies. I know from the time that I was with SCORE, each year they would elect new officers, and the culture of that SCORE chapter changed a lot from year to year, just based on who was the leader. But with that, regardless of those variances, you want to try to do workshops with local SCORE. They may agree, they may not agree. I don't really care, you don't really care, because we're going to teach regardless, and either SCORE can get on the bandwagon or not, but it would make sense because they have a very effective marketing campaign to attract. They are not opposed to fee-based education, so you're not going to run into a problem there. And you'll probably want a revenue share with them. So SCORE is the first of the 10. I'm not saying the most important of the 10, but if you've not reached out to your local SCORE chapter, you need to get off your duff and do it soon. Share with them what? The press release and the flyer. I'll show you where those are when we finish this list. It's on the website, on the IIMFL website, on the entrepreneurship program page. The flyer and press release are in gray or kind of grayish black boxes that you can download. So SCORE is number one. Does anyone have questions on SCORE? I see Gina and Kwong, you have other questions. Kwong, the recording didn't turn out yesterday, sorry, so we don't have a recording from yesterday, but it was just a normal conversation. You're welcome to be back tomorrow, and we'll probably repeat just about what we talked about yesterday. And Gina, you can get with Jennifer for the link for a meeting. But right now, what we're talking about, everybody, let's focus in. We're focused on the 10 organizations that each of you want to go contact right away. And so far, we're on number one. And so I'm asking Angela, April, Charlotte, Kwong, Gina, James, Jennifer, Madison, Monique, Natalie, Peggy, Ricky, Robert, Rudy, Teresa, and others. Does anyone have any questions about the first organization before we proceed? Super simple, right? You take the press release, you take the flyer located on the entrepreneurship program page of the IIMFL website, and you approach them and you want to seek to collaboratively educate. You want to set a workshop up with them, through them. Anyone have any questions? So if there's no questions, we should execute, right? So we'll execute after we get through today. Next is the local SBDC. Small business development centers are also primarily funded by the SBA. Every county or parish in the United States is represented by an SBDC, but of course there's not an SBDC physical office in every county or parish. I worked for the SBDC up until July 5th of last year, and our office supported 7 counties. So you can look up where the local SBDC office is and approach them and seek to do the same thing. My experience, and it's going to vary by area, so I'm very confident in my experience in working with these organizations, and I taught a boatload of workshops for the SBDC. But in general, SCORE chapters tend to be more active in doing group presentations in person or online than SBDCs, but there are some exceptions to that. And just like I said with SCORE, SBDCs are locally ran. There's an executive director of each. My boss had been there 22, 23 years, great guy, but rather conservative. And so you'll just have to approach them, present them with the press release and the flyer, and see if they'd be interested in collaborating. They may or they may not be. I don't really care. You don't really care, but we're going to try, right? We're going to try. So let's move on to okay, we're not going to stop. Who has a question about contacting your local SBDC and doing precisely what we said, which is painfully simple? Take the press release, take the flyer, both of which found on the entrepreneurship program page, and seek to set up a collaborative workshop. So again, Angela, Annette, April, Charlotte, Kwong, Gina, James, Jennifer, Madison, Monique, Natalie, Peggy, Regina, Ricky, Teresa, Travis, William, Will, Yvette, anyone else? Anyone have a question? We've covered 2 organizations that they need to know you and you need to know them. They need to know that you're a board member of this nonprofit organization that's focused on economic empowerment of minorities. They need to know who you are and what we're doing, and you need to try to set up a collaborative workshop with them. They may say, no, I don't care, you don't care. It's their loss. We're going to teach workshops in their backyard, and they can either be engaged or not engaged, right? Shame on them. Shame on them if they don't want to get involved. Kwong asked, who do you talk to? Okay, so on the local SCORE chapter, if you go to their website and if you can identify who their education chair is, that's the right person. In the absence of that, go to the president, go to the top. Local SBDC, you're going to go to the executive director, which should be referenced on their local website. Yep, Charlotte says she's called them before. She's going to call them again. Yeah, and we're going to get that, yes ma'am, get that press release in front of them. Get that flyer in front of them. Help it become more tangible. Show them what we're wanting to do. All right. And again, I mean, you can play this as hard as you want. And I know some of you are hellaciously good closers. You know, when you propose to them, hey, we would like to collaborate with you because I know that you care about the success of minority-owned businesses, don't you? How are they going to say no? How are they going to say no? They're not going to be able to say no. All right. So Gina says she's in a red city, so they wouldn't be interested in any minority program. Well, that's a pretty concerning statement if you're in a city that doesn't care about minority-owned businesses. But regardless of that, yes, you can focus on women-owned businesses. So let's go on to link number 3. So we've covered SCORE and SBDC. Now, less consistently, you may find in your community a resource center focused on women, again, funded through the SBA. There's the link to use. Next, local veteran organizations. Reach out to them, and what are you going to do? Share with them the press release, share with them the flyer found on the entrepreneurship program page of the IIMFL website, and say, let's collaborate together. Local chambers of commerce. I know I met with the executive director of a chamber yesterday, face to face. And I'll tell you right now, most chambers are hemorrhaging. They are hemorrhaging because they do not have the normal revenue streams that they've historically had. Normally they'll do events and mixers and meetings, and many of them will contribute revenue either from the membership attending or sponsors. Most of that has dried up. So they are looking for ways to add value, to attract and retain members, and to generate revenue, to keep their staff on. To keep, you know, I handed a $1,000 check to this chamber yesterday in support of them. They needed cash. So here you can take, what would you take to them? What do you think you'd take to them? Maybe the press release and the flyer from the entrepreneurship program page of the IIMFL and say, hey, let's do a collaborative workshop together, in person or online. We'll do a revenue share with you. We'll make a difference. It's not going to be closed only for minority-owned businesses, but that's our focus. How many local chambers of commerce are there? Let me check. I should know that. How many chambers of commerce? So we're Googling. It says 13,000. Well, that's what Google says. Let's assume it's right. And the source is the American Chambers of Commerce. 13,000 chambers. Oh, 4,000 in the US, 13,000 worldwide. So 4,000. We need to be reaching out to all 4,000 in the month of August. Some of them are going to say yes. Some of them are going to say no. Some of them are not going to say yet. Some of them are going to have to take it to their board. That's fine. But plant your flag in that sand and start working on using the press release and the flyer. There's 4,000 local chambers of commerce. Okay. Now then, there's some specialty chambers, aren't there? There's the African American or Black chambers. Here's a link so you can find them. There's a couple national Black chambers, and so then they probably have distinct subchapters. But nonetheless, African American chambers, Hispanic chambers, gay and lesbian chambers. So there's 3 examples of specialty chambers. Here's my experience. Probably didn't matter to you. You're smarter than me. You're going to figure this out much quicker than I would. But my experience is this. Many of these specialty chambers are even more receptive than the general chambers. So I think you'll get even more traction. Now you're going to have to make a decision. Do you join these chambers before you pitch the program, or do you go pitch the program and not join? That's up to you. as a nonprofit, and that's what I'd recommend. I'd recommend every one of you go form a nonprofit organization to lead your efforts with locally. Don't have to. That's $25 in Texas. I don't, all of you obviously not in Texas. So at $25, it's an immaterial cost. That's how much it's cost to start a new nonprofit corporation in Texas. $25. Then you get your EIN number, which is free. But regardless, you can join you can go contact chambers, national as well as specialty, and see what you can come up with. 1 Million Cups is interesting, and I imagine their model right now is in quite a bit of flux. They met every Wednesday. I was part of forming a new 1 Million Cups, and then the whole pandemic happened. So you'll have to feel out if the local group, they call it a community, in your area is even active or not. Maybe they're migrating over to virtual, but it used to be everybody got together every Wednesday morning for coffee and did certain programming. That could be an opportunity. Lastly, BNI. So BNI is a networking group, and they charge to join that networking group. I've been a member of BNI with a couple different organizations. The first one is when I worked for State Farm Bank. Extraordinary. Now, again, that was back in the old world when people got together once a week and met and they exchanged leads. It was freaking golden because you could join as the nonprofit chair. And you may say, what the heck does he mean by that? Well, in the BNI world, they restrict, each chapter has only one chair or one opening, if you will, for each category. So there's one chiropractor, there's one business banker, there's one personal banker, there's one residential realtor, and so forth. Well, one of the predetermined chairs or openings that they have that they would like to fill is the nonprofit chair. So you could go in as a board member of IIMFL and join BNI in that nonprofit chair, and then teach and talk about and promote these strategies that we have. It'll be a gold mine. I left being a college professor not because I didn't enjoy it. I loved it. I couldn't afford to be a college professor anymore. There's so much more income that we all are making on this side. You'll make more in a month than I made as a college professor in a year just by leveraging BNI. If you do all of these, you're going to be making some serious money while helping people. So now this is not an all-inclusive list, right? You're going to come up with other organizations and entities that you want to reach out to. But a couple of you had asked for a starter list. Here's the starter list. Here's 10 categories that frankly you need to prioritize reaching out to. So let's talk about action steps. Now this may sound a little out of order, but I'll explain and then we'll get to your questions. Don't go contact these organizations first. That's going to be step 3. Step 1 is work with Jennifer, get your first workshop or workshop set up in Eventbrite. Again, the entrepreneurship program. So at that point, I realize you probably don't have a host. As we said, we can teach the workshops with a host or without a host. It would be better with a host. And we've talked about some key organizations to go try to collaborate with and have as host. But don't first go to them. You already want to show that you're actively teaching the curriculum. So step number 1, work with Jennifer, set up your workshop in Eventbrite. Get your classes going in August. Get your classes going in August. Get your classes going in August. Then go ahead without a host, because we're going to get to the host on step 3. Go ahead and start promoting it as you can. You know you make $200 for around $200 for each person enrolls. We hope to have around 25 people. Could be more or less. If it's 25, you've made $5,000 up front, literally up front, but also on the front end. And then as we work with them and help them create strategies and plans to save money, protect their assets, grow their money, then there's even more on the back end. But this is locked in money without a doubt. So now once we have, and I'm not saying wait till you fill the class up, but get your class, your workshop set up, work with Jennifer on that, start promoting it, start enrolling people, then go to these organizations. Because let's talk about why. So we have Peter's on the call. And so if I went to Peter's the executive director of a chamber. And if I went to Peter and I just explained to him, well, I have some idea about teaching a workshop and it might be then, it might be there. Would you want to collaborate? That's kind of soft. But if I went to Peter and said, Peter, I'm a board member and a financial literacy educator with a national nonprofit. We're focused on the economic empowerment of minorities. We're going to narrow that economic gap that exists by improving financial literacy, improving credit, and helping them start and grow small businesses. We've received a grant subsidy to teach a 4-week curriculum that's called the Entrepreneurship Program. They're going to go through that. They're going to receive a certificate of completion. They're going to develop a lender or investor compliant business plan and financial projections, which is great internally as well as to access capital. And then we're going to help them with the capital match at the end of that. We would like to collaborate with your organization. Peter, would you agree that helping minority businesses start and grow is important to our community? And you sit there and you don't say anything till Peter responds. What's he going to say but yes? He's going to say yes. And then you can either play it a couple different ways. You could say, well, Peter, can you tell me actively right now, what are you doing to help minority businesses in our community in light of today's economic circumstances? What are you doing right now, Peter? What are those actions behind those words? You may not want to be that aggressive. And I suspect Peter doesn't have a whole lot of programming going on. So I said, well, that's great. Timing's perfect. We've got a turnkey program, award-winning curriculum, Peter, developed by the FDIC, promoted by the SBA. I'm going to teach it. We can collaborate on this. We do normally, even though it's grant subsidized, we do normally have the participants pay a small amount to participate, and we would like to do a revenue share with you. So this is going to do a couple things for you, isn't it, Peter? It's going to show that you care about minority businesses in our community. It's going to add money to your bottom line, and it's going to serve as a way to show that you're creating value for your members to attract and retain members. Peter, can we go ahead and get that scheduled? What's Peter going to say? So that's the reason that we go through that. Now, what you can also do is schedule multiple workshops in Eventbrite, having a new class start every week. So then what you could do, and this would be a best practice, rewind back to talking to Peter. Say, Peter, we have a new class that's starting the first week of September. It's a 4-week sequence. Here's the press release. Here's the flyer on it. What we could do is collaborate on that upcoming workshop. So you see what you've done is now you said, I'm already going to teach this. You can either get behind it and benefit from it or not, because I'm going to be teaching small businesses one way or the other. And so now he's almost becoming, his organization's almost becoming like a sponsor for that already scheduled workshop that's coming up. And so he might say, well, no, that's too soon. I've got to get board approval. That's okay. I'm starting a new class, Peter, every week. Which class would you like to collaborate on? The class that starts the second week of September? No, that's not good. Okay, how about the class that starts the third week of September? Okay, that might work. So the point is, start a new class every week, have those set up in Eventbrite, and now we're looking for organizations to partner up. Now, you're going to teach that class whether you have a partner or not, as long as there's people that are enrolled. But you know as well as I do, if you have these types of organizations standing behind you and promoting out your workshop, then you're going to have a lot more enrollment. All right, so I need to get to your questions here. We got 7 minutes left. Peggy says she's got it. Yes, ma'am. I suspect that you're going to be very successful with this. Thank you. Again, Kwong had asked, who do we talk to at these organizations? There's nothing wrong with starting at the top and working your way down. Get into the most important, there's a book called Selling DeVito, the most important person in the organization. Start at the top and work down, get them that press release, get them that flyer, And if they're not the person that you need to coordinate with, then they'll refer you to them. And I've done some crazy things in the past. I approached an organization. I was trying a big national organization, couldn't get a meeting with the CEO. Well, I knew through just public information who the venture capital was behind them. I went to the venture capital firm via email and was able to persuade them to tell the CEO to meet with me. And so I went into this Fortune 1000 company and met with the CEO from a blind referral from the venture capital company. So on a smaller scale, what are you doing? You're going to start typically with the executive director of a given chamber. And if they say, oh no, I can't help you, you need to talk to the education chair, Mary. Well, then when you say, Mary, your boss told me to contact you, how's Mary not going to meet with you, right? Because her boss told you to meet with her. All right, good. Let's see, we are to Peggy. She works in the red states. There are black businesses in every state, red or blue. It's about getting America restarted. Yep. And yeah, I'm going to stay out of all politics, but you know, this is essential. And I don't think if you're going to go very often to the top people in these organizations that they're somehow going to say, no, I don't care about minority businesses. I can't imagine. No, I don't have it written out, Gina, but I'll send out this recording and you'll have it to transcribe if you'd like. Monique's asking a great question about the revenue share. So, you know, from the $200 per person, well, no, let's back up. So for the entrepreneurship program, participants pay $99 a week for 4 weeks, which is $396. And we split that with you 50-50. And so I call that $200. I realize that there's a rounding error there, but essentially $200. Many people will just pay up front. Some will need to pay weekly, but it still adds up to essentially $200. So if you want to revenue share part of that, you certainly could. Common practice is you to do a 50-50 split with them on your 50%, but that is your discretion. Because remember, there's a lot more money on the back end than there ever is on the front end. Because if you have a class of 25 people, and hey, Gina says whatever. I don't know what that means, Gina. What's whatever mean? 25 people. Normally, we're going to get 75% of them to set up a smart money plan because most people aren't saving money. Most people don't know how to grow their money effectively. So if we have 25 people in your class and 75% set up a smart money plan, that's 18.75 people, kind of hard to have 0.75. So we'll just round down and say 18 index universal life policies should be sold. Depending upon the suitability of the client and their budget and so forth, you could very easily make $500 to $1,000 reasonably per person. So we'll split that and say that you're making $750 a piece. That's an extra $13,500, Monique, and you don't have to share that back end with them. And if they're not life licensed, technically you couldn't. So you could do a revenue share off the front end and you pocket all that on the back end, and you're still doing remarkably well. All right, so Gina asks, if they partner, do they get something to promote to their clients with the site? Okay, well, yeah, so once you have the key influencer on board, then probably what you're going to want to do is go back to your Eventbrite and then co-brand it with them. That's what you're going to drive people to. That's where they're going to register, unless you're going to use some other system. Some of your hosts may want to do the registration themselves. You'll just have to work with them to see. But you know, you've already got a system in place. You've got a system that's up and running here. And so they can either plug into your system, or if they want to do it differently, they can. But normally you could change the Eventbrite, and certainly you can take the flyer, which we've provided you. If you don't have it, you can get it from Jennifer, which is an editable flyer, and then you can co-brand it with your organization. But most of the time they're going to be promoting it through email blast and electronic means. They're usually not going to need physical documents in any type of quantity. And Annette asked a good question. So I mean, the program is $99 a week. And so we don't want to mislead that. So you have to decide what your outreach strategy is. If your outreach strategy is to promote and you want them to just go directly and enroll, then of course, then you're going to need to collect the money when they register, or let them register and then follow up with them and collect the money. If you're wanting to do an individual consultation with each one, then you don't, with your general marketing, you don't really have to list the pricing, because you're going to talk to them, reiterate the value proposition, explain how it's going to help solve their problems, and then you hit them up for enrollment, the $99. So there's a little bit of decision making that you'll want to take in terms of the process. And again, Jennifer can help you with that. Gina asked, there's no money out of the client's pocket for the insurance policy. Well, most people are not saving money. Most people are not properly prepared for short-term and long-term expected and unexpected expenses. Most people are not saving and growing money in such a way that it's risk-free and tax-free. So as you educate them, Gina, about how smart money plans work and how they probably don't have enough asset protection now in case that they were die, as far as how their loved ones would be impacted economically, about 3 out of 4 people will set up an IUL with you. The IUL has an element of insurance and has an element of cash growth. But of course, they would pay for that, Gina. You wouldn't pay for their insurance policy. That wouldn't be good practice. They would pay for that because they're getting the benefits. You wouldn't be the beneficiary. You wouldn't be part of the policy. You're educating them and helping them. Okay, so we're a minute over. Any other questions? Because the goal here is for you all to go take this and implement. Now, I guess I could have cut and paste, but certainly the first action step, work with Jennifer as soon as today, get your first workshop set up, or better yet, just go ahead and set up a new workshop that starts every week. Each workshop is composed of 4 modules, 4 classes, I know. So eventually you'll be teaching. In the first week, you only have 1 class to teach. In the second week, you have 2 classes to teach. The second week of the first one and the first week of the second one. And then so forth. So it'll ease in. So by the 4th week, now you're teaching 4 classes a week, and then you'll maintain that. And so you're always having a new class start. Each week there's a new class starting. And then what we do is we go back here and try to get these folks to collaborate with us with one of those that's already established. Much better, it's more powerful psychologically to plug them in to a moving initiative than it is to go in, look like a struggling initiative, and you're dependent upon them to get engaged. Oh, Gina, we'll have to pay anything up front for the policy. So normally for the policies, you'll do monthly pay for individuals. When we do the key person policies, we do annual premium, annual pay. But for individuals, they'll pay per month. Now think about it for a second, Gina. So if they've paid $99 a week to go through your entrepreneurship program workshop, then starting in the second month, so let's say they spent a month going through the workshop, 4 weeks. In the second month, they're not paying for this anymore, are they? So now all of a sudden, we're going to just take some part of what they were already paying for the workshop and reallocate it towards their smart money plan. So maybe it's at $99 a month, very meager, maybe it's $198, but essentially they're going to need to start funding their smart money plan because that's the way it works on a monthly basis. So when you do the financial needs analysis, you're going to understand their budget. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. We already know that. So what has to happen is you have to help them reallocate, help them prioritize. And if money's just tight, bring them on as a financial literacy educator, right? Give them your code, allow them to do the background check. They're in your hierarchy, and they can go out and teach. Because if someone says, well, I just can't afford to save any money, I can't afford a smart money plan, I'm stone cold broke, then say, well, you've got a money problem then. Let's get you plugged in. Let's get you doing this teaching, And if they're making an extra $5,000 a month, where's their excuse going to come now that they can't start saving for the future, right? So that you can't hardly have someone reject the idea, because most Americans are not saving properly for short and long term. Most don't have enough asset protection. You're going to have a very credible way to talk to them about that by doing the financial needs analysis after week 3. And if they claim to be too broke, then you plug them in and you give them a side gig to work with you, and that'll resolve their money problems. And, I say this almost every class. Many of you are very fortunate. Some of you are very affluent. And I think sometimes you might become disconnected with the rank and file, the normal Americans. Normal Americans probably don't have the money that you have. The normal American, you put an extra $5,000 a month in their pocket, just by teaching one class, they could do more. You put an extra $5,000 a month in the average American's pocket, it's going to make a difference. To you, maybe it's a blip, it's irrelevant. But to the average person, an extra $5,000 a month is going to allow them to do a lot of things that they need to do and want to do, including get the smart money plan. All right, great news, Teresa, on getting appointed with Nationwide. Gina, I will ask Jennifer to get with you today. And Monique asked about participants. So yes, the largest class that I've taught, and I think I told you this once before, is 110 people. When you get that large, it's very profitable, and it's a lot of fun. It's a bit challenging. So Monique, as far as minimum and maximum class size, it is up to you what you feel comfortable doing, and you're going to set it up, right? So people can't register. So if you set the cap at 25, the 26th person's going to go on a wait list, so you won't have to worry about it. They could always register in the next class, because the concept is to start a new entrepreneurship program workshop, a new class, a new workshop starting every week. I know they get 4 modules, they run for 4 weeks. So if you're full this week, then they start next week. Real simple. So could you do 100? Absolutely. I think, Monique, you could handle it. I think for some folks that are not as experienced, teaching 100 would be tough. But, let's do the math on 100 and then we'll wrap this up. So obviously, if you have 100 people paying you 200, then you just made 20,000 for that one class, granted over 4 weeks. And so we got 20,000 there, and then we would anticipate 75 would get a smart money plan, and that would add predictably another 56,000. So you'd be making around $76,250 from one class over 4 modules, 4 weeks, but in a month, right? And that's good money. A lot of people don't make that in a year, but Monique, yes, we would support you and endorse you in doing a 100-person class. For most of you, I wouldn't shoot for that. Let's just shoot to get 20 to 25 to start with. All right, well, thanks everyone. It's just time to implement. We're here to support you, but you've got to implement. Reach out to Jennifer. She'll work with you, and we'll see you back here tomorrow, 8 o'clock Central. Thank you. Bye-bye.